and welcome back to another episode of the Brutally Honest Loan Officer podcast. Derek, you're not smiling this time, so I'm okay.
You did it.
I
You
did
did
it. He makes fun of me because I mess it up.
This is literally like when Steven does the introduction, we now have like 6 weeks worth of him fumbling through the introduction.
Nailed it.
And so I'm always smiling. Today you did great, and
I did great.
Then you had to ask me about it.
I had to. I had to make sure you knew it because one time you said I messed it up when I listened to it. I'm like, no, I didn't. But
it sounded like you did. Holly agreed with me.
Yeah, she did. But all right, so we have a Mr. Special guest today with us, Dan. Welcome to our podcast.
Dan Demott in the house.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, man.
So we want to start with one question that's really important to us.
Go for it.
And we ask everybody in this, but it's kind of like an icebreaker question. Do you believe in aliens?
So
we definitely didn't send you this one.
It always sets people back.
That's a whole other podcast. So I spent a life believing that extraterrestrial life was a very strong possibility, and I recently read a book that leads me to believe that it's not that it is a real phenomenon from another dimension, from a more spiritual dimension, instead of from a coming from another planet. So that's a complicated answer to say yes, and with footnotes.
I never had that answer.
We're going to make a reel of all these different answers we've gotten.
Our 1 year anniversary of everybody.
Yeah.
Some people are like, yes, right away. You're like, oh, okay, whoa.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Dan, I don't know too much about you. I mean, followed you on social media and stuff like that. So realtor/coach. But give us a little background story, like who you are, what you came from, how you got into real estate, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. So born and raised here in South Florida. Grew up around the real estate business. My mother and my aunt had an independent real estate brokerage here in South Florida, originally down in Broward County, now Palm Beach County. And went to Florida Atlantic University, got a degree in real estate. Was really fortunate to get an internship that turned into a career in real estate private equity. Did that for 8 years, and then for lifestyle reasons decided to be more entrepreneurial. Started a property management business, then got into real estate sales, and started like a solo agent, like everybody else, calling my database, putting deals together, but quickly realized I liked the business. There was opportunity there, and I wanted to build a team and scale it. So over a 3.5-year period, I went from a solo agent to a team of 10 that did 128 transactions in 1 year. And then what I found was, in building that team and getting the production up, my passion was helping the people on my team. Like, I loved coaching the agents way more than I loved working with the clients directly. So at that time, I was with Keller Williams. There was an opportunity to run our brokerage, take what they call the team leader position.
Right.
And so I stepped into that role. Essentially, the owners there said, like, hey, if you like coaching the agents on your team, like, we've got 100 agents in our office that need help. And I absolutely loved that role. I recruited over 300 agents in the 2.5 years that I was there.
Dang.
Grew the production in that office, coached and consulted some of the best agents here in Palm Beach County, people I love dearly and are real rock stars. And then, I learned so much in that role, teaching, coaching agents. And as I kept kind of growing, I was sort of finding friction against some parts of that role, right? Part of the model there is that you're geographically restrained as a physical brick and mortar franchise.
Right.
And I was building my social media profile up and being contacted by agents all over the country. And so I just sort of hit this point where I was like, hey, I love doing this. I love coaching, consulting agents. I love teaching, but I want to be in a different vehicle to do that. And so I just switched to my own independent coaching business.
Gotcha.
And so I continued to have a small real estate team and sell real estate, although most of my business gets referred out these days. And my primary focus is coaching and consulting agents right now. We have 2 platforms. I do one-on-one coaching with high production agents, and then I have group coaching, which is open to everyone. Coach agents in 8 different states right now. And I love it. It's what I love to do is help agents build business, because I think this is one of the coolest industries there is for an entrepreneur.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because when was that moment that you're like, this is like, because you went from real estate, I mean, you're still technically doing real estate, but your passion is coaching. When was that moment that you're like, this is why I chose this profession? Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't one moment so much as like an evolution, right? So it was in that it's sort of the seed was planted in that move from the team to running the brokerage. My professional mission statement, as I was building my team, I had great coaches along that journey, and um, they were encouraging me to build, get your mission statement down, get your vision and your values, and really have a clear idea of what you want to accomplish with this business. And I wrote down my mission statement, and I said my mission statement was to give the consumer a better real estate agent. Right. And the first vehicle for that was my team, where it was like, I knew I was a better than average real estate agent. And I knew that I could teach the people on my team how to be way better and deliver a better experience to the consumer. And then when I got that opportunity to go up to the brokerage level, and I was like, oh, this is that. Right. This is now it's more people who are learning that I'm teaching how to be better, how to deliver better experience to the consumer, how to be more professional, how to consult at a higher level. And so all of that sort of went into that role. And then it sort of just snowballed into like, okay, well, now because of the power of the internet, social media, I can do this without any kind of real restrictions, but it's still that same mission at the end of the day. It's like, I think that real estate agents should be much better than they are, right? We help people with one of the largest financial transactions, and certainly the most complicated emotional transaction of their life, buying or selling their home or investment real estate. Like, so the dollars are large and the emotional attachment is large. And we help people with that. And we get ranked slightly above used car salesmen in terms of like overall customer experience, right? Like, it's a major disconnect.
Yes. Oh, wow.
That sounds so bad when you put it like that, though. But accurate.
Well, it's accurate, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of what I like to, part of what I think my mission to do is to say, like, hey, we as an industry need to be honest first about where we are, and then go to like, where are we going? And I think it also ties in with what's happening in our industry, like with Zillow taking on a much more hands-on approach to the marketplace, companies like Redfin, whose business model is to diminish the role of the real estate agent, right? Move them away from advisor and move them towards functionary, right? Hey, your job is go open the doors. Your job is write contracts. Your job is to, handle this part. That's functionary work. But at our highest level, real estate agents are consultants, right? We're advising people on making complex financial and, emotional transactions that happen at really key life stages. I personally believe real estate agents can deliver a much, much higher level of service that people will see real value in. And with everything that's going on with NAR and everything else, I think that's relevant to the future of our industry.
Yeah. Okay, so you bring up NAR. There's been a couple agents we've had on the podcast that more so wanted to avoid it, like the conversation, just because of some of the legalities and their opinion or whatever, don't necessarily want it going out, on a podcast. And then recently we had another realtor who also does coaching that was all about talking about it, had no fear as far as getting in front of the camera and giving an opinion. Like, what's your take on NAR? Good, bad, not a whole lot of change,
Yeah. So, I mean, my opinion is, again, with my mission being better real estate agents for the consumers, right? Which ultimately is a mission of better consumer experience. I think it's great. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it is going to require a lot of real estate agents to get better. It's going to help smart real estate agents who understand that now they have a much better opportunity to present their value proposition and educate their customer and get them into a real consulting advisory relationship, not I'm the person who goes and opens doors for you, a relationship. They're going to take advantage of this to have better client relations, to deliver better service and get paid for those services. I also think for the consumer, it's going to create more competition and more innovation. I think it's going to be great. There's going to be agents who say, I deliver a super high level of service. I expect to be compensated for my time. And I think the value is there. And there are going to be consumers who agree and want to pay that. I think there's going to be other agents who say, hey, like, I can deliver great service and it doesn't have to cost that much. And I could do it on a flat fee, or I could do it, on an a la carte menu. Like, now we have all this, this openness to innovation that really wasn't there before because there was no need for it to be.
Yeah.
Right.
And so long term, what happens with that? We don't know yet. And it's going to take longer than people think. I think it's a full year before we even start to see that.
Yeah. Agreed.
And everyone's sort of living in this weird honeymoon phase right now where they're like, well, nothing's really changed. And I keep trying to remind agents, here in Palm Beach County, I know the numbers because I did a presentation about this recently. When the NAR settlement went into effect, August 13th or 17th, whatever it was, there was 4,500 homes listed for sale in Palm Beach County. Well, all of those were done before the changes. So they all had buyer representation baked into those deals. And so we sell 1,100 homes a month. So there's 4 or 5 months of inventory where this conversation is not even going to come up.
Right.
Right. So until all that inventory clears out, we're not even going to know what the conversation and what the evolution and what the innovation happens to be. So we're in this phase of everyone going from fear to complacency, and then we're going to get into competition, which to me is exciting. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
Right.
I think competition is going to be great. It's going to. I mean, Derek and I are coaches in coaching that. Yeah, we're competition to each other, but the competition is what really drives everybody to get better.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, you beat me out on this. Like, why? Why did you beat me out? I'm going to figure out that's not going to happen again, kind of thing.
Yep.
I mean, unless you're related to the person, and I'm not going to be related to them, so I can't win there. But I'm going to be smarter than you or something.
Yeah, and everyone's got to figure that out. Like that, to me, that's the when I talk about it, I try to encourage agents like, hey, here's the cool thing. You're going to have this opportunity to figure out for yourself, what is your value proposition and how do you want to charge for it? We've not had to do that in terms of buyer representation as an industry. It just wasn't the way the market was set up. So now it is going to be. And to me, like, hey, that's exciting. I understand the fear component, but I'd rather say, hey, this is what I do. This is what I bring to the table. This is the people I want to be in alignment with. This is how I charge for it. And be confident that I'm serving a niche in the market and I'm going to find my people who agree with that value proposition and that price.
Well, and like, I mean, I think it opens up new opportunities too. So, just had a closing for one buyer who they had a buyer's broker agreement for 3%. And then the listing agent got 2.5%, but they submitted an offer where the seller's going to pay 3% to the buyer's agent, and they agreed.
Yep.
So I would assume that prior to this change, that would have been a 5% listing agreement, and 2.5 and 2.5 is how it's going. And then that's just agreed upon, submit offer, but now the buyer's agent said, let's go with the 3, see what they say. Anything's negotiable, whatever, and sure enough, the seller accepted it. So she just made more money.
Yeah. And
that's fantastic.
I think that there's going to be, I think that that is the side of this that a lot of people don't appreciate because they lack perspective. Right.
Sure.
So if you've only been in the industry for 5 years, 6 years, you've lived through this sort of bull run seller's market.
Yeah.
But for people who are in the industry in 2009, 2010, after the financial crisis, who remember there were massive incentives and massive compensation for the buy side of the transaction because that was the value. Listings were a dime a dozen. Banks were sitting on all this inventory. It was all sitting on the market. Nobody wanted to buy it. So if you had a buyer who was qualified and motivated, there was a ton of incentive for you to get paid. And so in the seller's market, it's easy to say, hey, buyer agent compensation is going to get compressed. If we move into a buyer's market, we could see it go the opposite way. But the cool thing now is it's a toss-up. It's all up for negotiation and it's all up for value proposition. And we're going to see a lot of creativity, I think, come out of that. And people are going to try things. There's already people who are trying, a la carte and pay by the showing and things like that. And I don't, maybe it'll win, maybe it won't. I don't know. I've got my own, thoughts about that. But again, I think that there's huge opportunity for people who know that they bring real value to a buyer in the consultative process to get paid for a high level of service. And there are people who will understand that value proposition.
I want to touch on value, because I know we went to the NAR element and stuff, but like the value that we're going to have out there with you coaching, I mean, your course coaching how to make agents more valuable to their clients. What's one of the biggest challenges you're seeing? Now I want to say new real estate, a student coming to you, what is usually the biggest challenge that you're seeing with them? Like, this is what's happening to me. This is what I need to fix, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the biggest, probably overall, if I had to summarize, the biggest obstacle agents have is a system or a process. Most agents need a work day, right? And the problem with our business, the real estate business, the mortgage business is, very similar. You could do anything. Like, it all works, right? I always tell agents, it's 2024. You can go on YouTube, you could find someone making $1 million doing anything. The question is, like, are you going to do what it takes to get those results? So door knocking, Facebook ads, database, open houses, it doesn't matter. But are you going to do it sufficiently and consistently and run a process that gets you results, and then continue to refine that process until you maximize the results you can get? That's where most agents are struggling. They wake up every day, they don't know what they should be doing. So they either do nothing, or they sort of poke around the edges of something instead of really going like, all right, I'm going to do this game plan and I'm going to run it this week and I'm going to make it better next week.
I think that's great, because a lot of them don't ever have the game plan of like, I'm going to start this, I'm going to have no results for could be months on end. And then suddenly like we're with Derek and I are coaching, like when a student comes in, like it's a 6-month commitment, like you're here for 6 months. I think I kind of almost judge a lot of my stuff is like, okay, I'm doing all these videos and stuff on social media, like, but how consistently have I been doing it? And maybe the last 3 months that I've really poured into it, I'm like, okay, here comes the results from it, kind of thing. And so you always see that people are like, oh, I'm going to tap into this. Oh, I didn't do anything, and I'm going to leave. I'm like, well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, well, the thing I always try to explain to agents is, whenever you're doing anything you've never done before, there's only 2 ways you can improve the outcome, right? Quantity and quality, right? And the thing is, when it comes to quality in lead generation, it's a skill set, right? You have to develop it over time. So in the short run, you can do more quantity faster than you can do more quality, meaning, right? You can doing 4 open houses a weekend is going to get you results faster than getting better at doing open houses. Like, yes, there is better quality, right? You can do more in the lead up, you can do more while you're there, you can make a bigger scene, you can get better results, you can get better at the qualitative skill of hosting an open house that generates leads. But in the short run, just do more of them, right? So what I always tell agents, and the ones who are most successful at getting up the learning curve that I work with, are the ones who just buy into that, right? And go, instead of holding 1 open house this weekend, hold 4, right? Because you've done more than 4 extra odds. You really probably 10 extra odds just by sheer effort. And then the next week go, okay, what could I do to make those better? And then do 4 more, incrementally better. So now you're doing quality and quantity at the same time. That's how you get results. Same thing with videos and social media. Yes, over time, your social media gets better. Yes, your videos get better. But in the short run, just make more videos. That's going to get you more results faster than trying to get your production quality up.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's how I got into videos, was a coach of mine, or I don't even think it was my coach then, but he was a coach of mine at one time. But we did a 30-day challenge, 2-3 years. We're like, oh, we should get into social media. I think 2 or 3 years ago, we're like, we're going to do 30 days of videos, like every day post a video, like, and no scheduling them, just record that day and post. And I mean, that's all we did. And then boom, like we started blowing up on social media, just the quantity of it. And then, yeah, of course we got better and better.
Right. Because it also gives you better data. Right. And that's what I tell agents with lead generation. It's like, well, let's assume you have to hold 4 open houses to get 1 qualified buyer lead, right? Whatever that math works out to. 4 open houses gets 5 people per open house, so 20 people walk in the door. One of those is a qualified lead ready to go look at properties, right? Well, if you, to your point earlier, Stephen, if you do 1 open house a week, it takes you a month to get to 1 buyer lead. If you do
Right.
4 in 1 weekend, it takes you 1 weekend to get a buyer lead.
Love it.
Right.
Yeah.
That it's just that, and over the long term for real estate agents, it's that question of like, well, can you hang in there until you get the result? Well, just short circuit to the result. Like, let's just work as hard as we can until we get the result, then figure out where to go from there, instead of going like, well, I was going slow I was doing 1 open house a weekend, except then I ran out of my savings and I have to go back and get a job now. Right. Instead of tripling or quadrupling down on open houses and getting your result in the first 30 days.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of how I built my business at the very beginning, because I joined like, realtor groups and stuff like that, and like the local realtor association. And there are a lot of times where realtors were in the room, but then I also couldn't tell, like, do you have buyer leads or not? So then I started like, well, open houses, buyers are walking into them.
Right.
So I'm going to go to an open house. And so then like there was one, I had become friends with a realtor who wanted me to stay at the open house and work it with her, and like any buyer leads that come through, great. And then I realized like that was more of a waste of time, and that I could probably go to 15 open houses a day on Saturday and then Sunday. So I've gone to 30 open houses where I've met a realtor. I can kind of tell if like I should follow up with them come Monday. And so then like out of those 30, there's probably 20 people I'm now going to call.
Right.
And then I just created like this huge list, and I'm just going to continue following up. And then that led to buyer leads for me. And then once we started working those buyer leads, that became realtor relationships that then I didn't have to go see them at an open house. And it got to a certain point where I didn't have to go to open houses again. I needed to focus on the relationships that I had built, and then, work on that business.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, I mean, from day, like, I think it was that first month I realized I'm going to get way more traction with more open houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always to me, this is the exciting part. Like, we live in this crazy world now where like right now I'm teaching a bunch of my agents a Facebook marketplace ad strategy. But I mean, I've taken and I give it away. Anybody who wants to, check it out, you can go on my Instagram and check out one of my posts about it, or go in my link in my profile, or go to my website, dandemott.com. I give away my no-cost lead generation strategy, but it's Facebook marketplace ad strategy. And I've plugged it into people's business and have them getting hundreds of leads in a day. Right. And so I always have agents start with that, because like, well, if your mindset is there's no leads out there, and I can get spending $0, I can put hundreds of leads in your phone, ready to have a DM conversation with you. Now we can change your mindset, because the reality is there's tons of opportunity out there. There's tons of leads.
Right.
It's not a lead problem. It's an activity problem. You're not doing the right activities, and you're not doing enough activities to get the leads you need to be successful.
Right.
I think that's great. I think so. Recruiting, and then army recruiting that I was in before mortgages was, and this is what I love when I did a class with Dan for, was a lead is just a name and number, like, which is a person. So you just need a person. Like we did a class ago, you broke it down, and you could just like see everybody's face, just like it's just a name and number, like that's a lead.
Yeah. Well,
your job to convert it to something.
Right, exactly. Listen, the phone book is a lead book.
True.
Right. Now the fallacy that real estate agents fall for, right, is the fallacy of intent, right? With the idea being that if I buy leads, or if I do some lead generation strategies over others, those people have a higher degree of intent to transact than the phone book. The phone book is just random numbers, right? But we know from anybody who's done any kind of lead generation knows that the conversion rates are all relatively close to each other, right? The reality is the average market across the country, like 7% of that market sells every year, right? So it's like the phone book, if you called everybody in the phone book, 7% of those people are going to buy or sell a house. Just the way the math works, right? So it's like, so online leads, historically, even lower, right? Zillow leads, we don't have the data anymore, but the last time they shared that data was 2016. How many leads they sold was like 4 times as many houses as sold in the United States. So everyone's like, well, I buy Zillow leads because they're high intent. Well, it's like, well, the data doesn't prove that. They actually no longer share how many leads they're selling because the data doesn't support that there's high intent there. So if you just are honest with yourself and say, okay, all leads are good leads. To Steven's point, leads are just contact information for someone that I can see if they have a need that I can service, and if not, maintain a relationship long term. And there's not really any meaningful difference in intent. Then it's all about work. It's all about just getting as many conversations going as you can, because a certain percentage of them are going to transact, and that's what we're trying to do. There's no secret, but everyone wants the secret. Secret is all leads are good leads, and you need to do more of them and have more conversations on a daily and weekly basis than you think.
I mean, it's a contact sport. Real estate is contact. Like whoever contacts, I always say, whoever contacts the most people is going to win. That's all it comes down to.
Yep. And the thing but the flip side to that is the hurdle is way lower than people think. Like you can contact everyone and just say, hey, how are you? How's life? And by the way, if you know anybody who's thinking about doing something, like I'd love to be your guy, but like we don't have to I don't have to sell you anything.
I have this amazing loan product that you're never gonna.
Yeah, and it doesn't work. And here's you guys know this. You've never closed anybody on a mortgage. You've never found someone who wasn't even thinking about buying a house, and they were like, you know what? I didn't even want to buy a house, but Steven was so convincing that before I knew it, I'm signing loan documents. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
right?
it's not real.
I consider myself a good salesperson. I've never convinced someone to sell their house. They were thinking about selling their house before they met me. I may have sold them on working with me, on my value proposition, and on my service, but I didn't sell them on the idea of buying or selling a house. I was just there to advise them. So at that point, take the stress out of it. You just got to talk to people and be a real human at scale. And in doing that, say this is how I help people. How I help people on earth is by helping them get mortgages, buy or sell houses. And if you know anybody who's thinking about doing that, I'd love the opportunity to help them.
So, okay, then you mentioned you've got your Facebook marketplace strategy. What's like just a simple piece of advice you would give to a new realtor, like not sure where to start? Like, is it literally just find a neighborhood and call homeowners?
Yep,
Or, I mean, what you've been in the business long enough to know, like, okay, if you really want to just get started with something easy, what would you suggest?
First thing I would say is calling your friends and family is always the thing that people sleep on. And agents have every excuse in the world. No one in my family buys houses or owns houses. I'm not from where I'm located now. People who have a million excuses. I don't want to. They won't support me. It's the difference between agents who are very successful long term and those who struggle is, do they market to their sphere of influence, their database, right? Plain and simple, right? To your point, Derek, when you said you essentially built that database, right? You said, okay, I need to work with, you're in a business to business servicing space. You said, I need real estate agents. I have a limited database of real estate agents. So I'm going to go attend these open houses and meet them. And then I'm going to put them in my database. And in time, you built a database big enough that you didn't need to go add more people to it. Right. But at the fundamental level for everyone, it's like step number one, if I was stuck in the middle of a state in a town that I've never been to before, and you said, go start a real estate business here, I'd still start with calling all the people that I know. Even if I'm in Colorado now and my whole database is here in South Florida, I'd call everyone I knew in South Florida and say, hey, I'm in Colorado now. I'm doing real estate. If you know anybody who's in Colorado, I'd love to meet them and connect with them, right? At the end of the day, I start with that. The other reason is that just helps you as a new agent get comfortable talking to
100%,
people.
100%.
Right? So start with the low bar. People who know you are going to be nice to you. They might not be helpful, but at a minimum, they're going to let you get your shtick out. They're going to let you say, hey, this is what I'm doing now, and if you know anybody, I'd really appreciate the referral, and wish me luck.
Yeah. And if you fumble through your words with a friend or a family member, there's not a whole lot of judgment there. Like, okay, but if you did it, let's just say you got 20 friends and family that you call through. by the 21st phone call, when you're about to start calling people that are not your friends and family, there's a really good chance you've worked out those mumbles.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, and you should be able to flow better, sound smarter, or the first 20 people have already asked you the questions that you're like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I don't know how to answer it yet.
Right.
And you figured out how to answer it, or they've already given you an objection and you thought about it.
Yep.
So no, it's great.
So I tell people to start there, and then the second, and then it's as simple as getting one lead generation strategy that you're actually going to do to add people to that database. Like once you've rolled through, you've got the practice, you got that down, you've talked at all the low hanging fruit. Now, okay, we got to meet new people. It needs to be something, and again, it all works, but it has to be something you'll actually do, right? So when the one that's always shocking to me is it always seems to be people who hate being in large groups who want to go network for business, right? And it's like, I appreciate the desire to work on yourself, but like, let's launch our business first. Like you go, I've seen you go network and you stand in the corner and you don't like talking to people. That's cool. Like, I get it. So that's not your lead generation strategy, right? Let's pick one that you're actually going to do. If you're comfortable on the phone, pick up the phone. If you're comfortable in person, do open houses. If you like to network, go to networking events. If you prefer to be text and on your phone and on social media, like do that. But go all in on it and get really good.
And consistent.
Right? Every day.
Consistency is like
That's-
huge.
That's
Right?
the biggest
Because
thing.
you
is
start doing
consistency.
really well and then you take a break. Then you go back to, and the inconsistency will hurt you.
Yeah.
If you talk to anybody that's a top producer on anything, it always comes down to, I have been doing this consistently and longer than you.
Yeah.
That is it.
Right.
Like, how did you get here? Well, I did this lead generation thing consistently for this long, and I still do it. And that's what they do.
Yeah, long term you can always do that. But for new, I think you have to go with intensity, right? My thing is like sprint at something at a pace that you can't do forever, but that you can do long enough to get traction.
Yeah.
Right. And people always get hung up on like what are the techniques? But it's like, get on social media. What should I do? You should post. You should DM people. Like, I want you doing things on social media until Facebook like gives you some kind of warning that you need to stop. Right. Like, if that's your lead generation strategy, like go all in on it. Right.
Until they get mad at you.
Listen, I do that. But we run ads on Instagram. That's for our coaching business. And I am on there. I limit out on DMs at least 2 or 3 days a week, right? Between me responding to people on inbound leads and me following up with leads that those conversations stalled, and me just finding new people and connecting and DMing them a couple days a week, I'll limit out on DMs. It's like, that's the best feeling. I wish I could had the time to do that every day, because you're like, damn, I did it. I crushed Instagram. Like, I cannot possibly lead generate more on this platform.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know what that number is, probably like 150 DMs or something like that. So it's not even crazy. Like, everyone could be able to get that every day.
I'm not DMing enough. I'm liking and commenting enough, but apparently not DMing enough.
It's all happening in the DMs.
I know on my Facebook, like on the app, thing always pops up like, you've been on here for a while. Are you sure you still want to be on here? Like,
Right.
You might need to take a break.
If you're using it for lead generation, you can be on it all day. And that's my point, is like, if you love using social media, turn it into a lead generation tool. You're going to be there anyways.
Right.
What's your, I was gonna say realtor, but like, what's your favorite part about coaching?
What's my what part?
Favorite part about coaching?
Oh, I mean, I love seeing people get the results, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, it's when somebody texts me and they're like, oh my God, it's working. Or like, I've got somebody,
Yeah.
I posted I did your ad and I got a bunch of DMs and I'm showing somebody houses tomorrow. Like, to me, that's like, how does it get better than that? Right? Like,
Love that. Love
people
that.
forget, and you guys get this in the mortgage industry too. I always say, like, I got a ton of respect. And when I was recruiting for Keller Williams, I really developed this. I had a ton of respect for people who get into real estate and mortgage, because you got to think about it. You got these people, one day they go like, I'm going to get into the real estate industry. right? And you know that all their family and friends, they start saying like, oh yeah, I'm studying, I'm taking my real estate test or whatever. All their family and friends are like, you're not gonna make it, right? Like it's
Right.
everyone shits on people up front. And then, and it is hard and the failure rate's really high, right? And so then when I was recruiting people into Keller Williams, like we'd see that and it killed me, right? Of like that person who came in, they overcame their family's objections, they overcame the shade, they got the test, they came in, and then they'd go out 6 months, 8 months later, hat in hand, and have to go back to that dinner table where, their uncle or whoever was like, see, I told you couldn't make it in real estate. Like to me, that was like the worst thing. Like it takes so much confidence to be able to get started in one of these businesses that's purely eat what you kill entrepreneurial effort, and the the shit you're gonna get for failing is so much that I was always just like, man, if there's anything I can do to help people not have to end up on that side of it, like that's what I want to do. So for me, whenever I see people have success, that's the inverse of that is like, yeah, we got it, you're gonna make it. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Love it. That's awesome.
It's
It's
funny. It's well, Steven, I don't know if you know this, but Brett, so one of our owners I met early on, and he didn't think I had it.
really.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we got you gotta tell
He's told
the
me like I didn't think you were gonna make it.
the backstory is Derek worked in the back of mortgages, office, and got kicked out of there because he talked too much, and they're like, you need to be an LO.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that
Yeah.
they
Well, I
said
mean,
you're not.
I got hired. They wanted me for sales, but they put me in our shipping department to learn mortgages a little bit and learn some documents. Like I had never,
Yeah.
I hadn't bought a house or anything, like nothing. I just had a really good, interview with a branch manager. So in order to give me, a little bit of mortgage background, they put me in our corporate office, and it was the worst job ever. Like literally packaging loans together to be sold to an investor. That's what my job was. So just flipping papers. It was
Right.
terrible. So anybody that came by, I was talking 100%. And so our now COO, called my branch manager, was just like, if you don't take him out of here, I'm going to have to fire him. Like he can't be here. He talks to everybody, and so that led to me going to the sales side and then learning that side for a little while. Then I got licensed, and rest is history.
I love that. I love that.
But
yeah, and there's all kinds of people like that. Like so many, I'm blessed to know so many people who stuck with it and overcame the challenges and are successful and are great agents, right? And so that's the thing I love the most about it, is like seeing people win, seeing them develop some confidence, start to build a business, and I just think it's super cool.
so we've talked about like the NAR settlement. We're getting buyer broker agreements signed now. Last week, Fed announced rate cut, which we had already seen interest rates kind of coming down leading up to that. So there's a lot of changes happening in both just real estate and mortgage world.
Yeah.
Where do you see like the market evolving to? Like, is there anything that you're specifically excited for? Or, do you think that like this NAR settlement, there's going to be some realtors getting out of the game? So now it's a chance for you and your team to grab market share, affordability, is that coming back with lower interest rates? Like what do you see happening, and what are you excited for?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely opportunity there, right? Will be people who retire out of the business. There are people who got in and it's just hard and they're gonna get back out. And I think so I think there's opportunity to take market share. I think we have all this going on this year, plus it's an election year, right? Right now we're seeing a lot of people I think are on the sidelines because of the election. And not that to go on record, it doesn't matter who wins, right? Like as far as like where the housing market goes, like people are gonna, once the uncertainty is gone, people are gonna re-enter the market. Listen, I think we have a fundamental supply demand imbalance that will take years to build out of. And so I think
We've been at that. People don't realize like that the '08 crash caused that. Like we're still
building. Yeah, we're still building out of that. I think that fundamental dynamic changes, or that fundamental dynamic remains and continues to drive housing sales. And I think that, you know, it's interesting because the mortgage world moves much faster than the real estate world in a way, right? And we're already seeing, I just read an article a couple weeks ago about home builders building smaller houses, right? So there is inflation, cost, affordability issues, and this underlying supply and demand issue that doesn't go away. Home builders are getting creative, but right, so it's like they know they need to build smaller houses to help with affordability, but that takes time, right? So we'll see
Right.
that come out over the long term. And we have this really unique thing happening right now that I think, longer term, I'm really interested to see how it plays out. But, part of the reason we have this supply and demand imbalance is because people are living so long, right? For the boomer generation is like the first generation to really live and be healthy as long as they are. And so they're staying in houses that would have historically been passed on or sold or entered the market.
Yeah.
And so we've got this massive wave of wealth transfer that's going to happen at some point in the future. That's going to be exciting. And so to me, it's like we're in this really challenging, tough, changing phase, and that probably has another year or so on it. But the long term, if I look out 10 years, and I always tell everybody like I want to be in this business for the next 30 years, Lord willing, then that long term thing is like all exciting opportunity. Like I think the ability to be an advisor and help people navigate that and see what happens with that market is just a cool time to be in real estate. Right now it's challenging, it's rocky, but we'll get through that.
Right. Yeah, I think that the market we're in right now is only going to make us stronger. It's only going to
Yep.
make us better.
Yep.
You know, and then when another easy time comes, it should be just that much easier for us.
Absolutely.
Because I was still kind of new into the business when interest rates were hitting all-time lows and stuff like that. And I mean, I can only imagine if I had my database and everything else that I have now, then,
Yeah.
So I'm ready for that next one.
That's all you can do, right? All you can do is continue to build your business, continue to get better at your craft. And when the winds blow in your favor, work them for all you can. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
What's something, I know we hit some coaching points on there, but what is something that you think realtors might be missing? That they're, maybe something you did as a realtor, that you're like, hey, this sets me apart. I know we talked about value, but there's something that you're like, realtors are missing this. Is there something like that?
I think it's what realtors are missing. I think it ties in with that that advisory level, right? I think that even when I think about delivering better service to the people that I are already in my database, that's the thing that I always go like, that's where we need to be focused is there's so much opportunity for real estate agents to be of service to someone in between transactions, right? So we have this weird business where the sales cycle is like 5 to 7 years, right? You sell someone a house, they're not going to likely sell it again and buy another one for another 5 or 7 years on average. So I think agents are missing the opportunity to bring value in between. Like I want people calling me when they need a landscaper, when their AC goes down, right? When they're debating making improvements to their house, when they're deciding should they get solar or not get solar, like really being that high level advisor for everything related to owning a house. Like I'm not just the person you call when it's time to buy or sell. I want to be the person you call for anything related to your house. I think over the next decade, that's where you will see real estate agents successful agents will push hard into that and really be like a almost concierge level service related to owning a home.
I love that.
Yeah. I feel like that's where I've tried to get to, as far as like, I have an awesome network of people, especially like I've gotten a lot of phone calls from clients and, months, maybe a year after closing, like, hey, Derek, do you know a painter? Hey, Derek, hurricane came through. Do you know a roofer? Do you know, a plumber? Yes. And I always want to make sure I say yes.
Yeah.
So like I've built my network outside of that, not necessarily so that like, hopefully they buy a house one day, but no, so I can refer them. So like I can build relationships with people and know that they're like great at their trade so that I can easily refer my clients and know that they're taken care of. And then I still look like a rock star. Oh my God, Derek, you were right. He was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I mean, because you guys have that, and you guys have the interesting aspect to your business of being both business to consumer and business to business, right? In
Right.
terms of how do you bring value to real estate agents? You know,
Mhm.
Stephen, I know that's a lot of what you do with teaching agents and helping agents build their business, where it's like, okay, eh, right, in that same way, if you're the LO who's helping me build my business in between transactions, you're more likely to get the next transaction, right? And I think so. I think that that is a big push for real estate agents. I think it also ties into defending the value proposition for buyers agents. I think that there's going to be this big push to say, hey, here's reasons you want to buy a house with me, and this is what I'm going to charge you for that, and why you should agree to pay that is because of this. This is not a one and done transaction, but we're going to live together while you own this house, and I've got this network of vendors who give discounts to my clients and deliver top-notch service, and I'm going to advise you on all the different aspects of owning, insuring, and improving a house over the next 5 to 7 years of ownership. That's why you want to pick me and not the other real estate agent.
Right. I know that there's been talks of so many buyers just going straight to the listing agent because they don't want to pay a buyer's agent and stuff like that. What's your take on, a realtor that has a listing and then doing double side, handling the buyer as well?
Yeah, listen, I tell people I've done it before and I hate it. If I had my way, I would encourage the state legislature to this makes me very unpopular with real estate agents, but I think the state legislature should get involved to outlaw dual agency and transaction brokerage, because the reality is, if you're representing both parties, you're representing no one, right?
Right.
And the reality of that is, it's in Florida, we say you're a transaction broker, you're representing the deal, right? You're going to be fair and honest with both parties, and you have your duties, which are outlined, and I agree with those. But if you're for the deal, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, you're not actually representing anybody, and there's limitations inherent to what you can do to provide better service. And so really what it looks like is you're looking out for yourself.
Right.
Right? And I think highly of real estate agents, and I think most real estate agents live beyond the minimum expectations of that relationship, but it's not a good look, right? And the reality, I will tell you, I've got a listing on right now. We've gotten a ton of interest, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me directly who I have referred to other agents. And I said,
Right.
listen, I'm representing the seller. Um, you know, I'm not going to do both parties. So, like, I'm happy to connect you with an agent if you need someone, or an attorney if you want them to write up an offer for you, but I'm not representing both sides. And I think I'll increasingly go that direction because I feel much better about it. I feel like I'm delivering better service to my seller, and I
Right.
feel like they're getting better service as a buyer.
Agreed.
Because you're not going to get rich off of one deal. Always like
Absolutely.
one deal is not going to retire you. So like having both sides, but it was you said you're
Yeah,
just looking out for yourself then.
exactly. And I think that the NAR changes open up for the incentive there to kind of go away, and so then when the incentive gets less muddy, now we can look at service, right? So I think we'll see a lot more real estate attorneys stepping into that, right? And I
Right.
think smart listing agents will probably do that. Either say, hey, I'm going to refer you to a real estate agent that I know who will write up your offer, or hey, I've got this relationship with this real estate attorney, and they'll prepare your offer and submit it, and we'll run our process that way.
Right. That was the last question I had, Stephen.
I think that's it. I mean, do you have anything you want to drop a Dan? Tidbit, anything? Maybe a tip for a realtor out there just kind of fumbling their way through the real estate
Listen,
life?
if you're a real estate agent and you're stuck, you're unsure, you're frustrated, reach out to me. I'm not just in the business, but I come from a place of contribution with that. Shoot me a DM, find me on Instagram or Facebook, or go to my website, and you can just, on my website, dandemott.com, you can book a one-on-one. I do free 15-minute consultations with anybody who takes them. It is not a sales call. It is a what's going on and how can I help you? Because like I said, I'm in this business for the long term. If I can help a real estate agent in the short run, I know that it will come back over the long run to benefit me. That's the way humans work. So Yeah,
Right.
if someone's stuck, reach out. We will help you.
Love it.
Love it. Go through your socials real quick, just so dandemott.com. But
DanDemott.com, at Dan Demott on Instagram, and Dan Demott on Facebook.
no, that was way simpler. Okay.
Yeah.
Apparently Dan Demott isn't like a super common name.
I got in early.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of being a millennial.
Yeah,
Hey.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I loved our conversation. Really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, so much
I
appreciated.
appreciate you guys having me.
Well, there's another episode of the Brutally Honest Loan Officer podcast. Thanks for listening. And Dan, thanks again for being on. And definitely get together soon.
All right.